Now I give the floor to the Permanent Representative of Sri Lanka.
Madam Chair, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, permit me the indulgence, first of all, Ambassador Stoa, to congratulate you and the members of the Bureau on your election to lead this very important committee. We are assured of Sri Lanka's fullest support to achieve success on the work on our agenda. Sri Lanka aligns itself with the statement delivered by the distinguished representatives of the Islamic Republic of Pakistan on behalf of the Group of 77 and China. Madam Chair, we are gathered here at a time the world faces a multitude of complex and interlocking challenges, further exacerbated by the pandemic and the global crisis. At a time, the only certainty, most certainly, is more uncertainty, as the Secretary General has very correctly put it. As the committee responsible for matters relating to economic growth and development, financing for development, sustainable development, globalization and interdependence, eradication of poverty, operational activities for development, agriculture development, food security and nutrition, information and communication technologies for development and environment, we all have a task at hand to explore actionable outcomes through our deliberations during this session. In this context, Sri Lanka welcomes the theme for this session, transforming political commitments into actions for sustainable recovery, rebuilding a sustainable future for all, which is very timely. Madam Chair, we all heard the political commitments for sustainable recovery by our leaders during the high-level week concluded recently. We need to appreciate that the deepening inequalities both within and between states have affected the developing countries and their economies, including Sri Lanka. Governments are faced with the challenge in debt servicing and compelled to defaulting in their payments as they do not have adequate access or effective access to capital. This has resulted in people facing extreme poverty, unemployment, and hunger. Regardless of our efforts to achieve the sustainable development goals, our collective ability to realize them have become an extremely challenging exercise. Therefore, economic recovery should be the priority on our agenda. This is perhaps the reason why no poverty or the eradication of poverty is considered the SDG 1 in the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Madam Chair, more than to recover, even to sustain, I say, economies such as ourselves need immediate rapid financing. Sri Lanka has been calling our creditors for debt restructuring, greater access to finances, and enhanced official development assistance. While we note with appreciation the progress in some bilateral engagements relating to debt restructuring, there is still the need of a more efficient engagement and robust role to be played by the international financial institutions. Sri Lanka underlines the importance, therefore, of South-South cooperation in this regard, in this process of building back better. Domestically, we have realized that this is an opportune moment to build a more just, sustainable and prosperous future for our people, and therefore it is envisaged to implement political, social and economic reforms that are integrally needed to lead our recovery efforts. Sri Lanka is thankful for our regional and international partners and look forward to the continued support of them, including that of the United Nations. Madam Chair, as we recover, we also need to ensure that our planet is safer and greener, as the future of humankind cannot be compromised. Sri Lanka, which is a climate-vulnerable country, has been adversely affected by the climate change, spilling its effects over our socio-economic progress, food security and livelihood. This is not a national problem, it is a global one, which requires global solutions. The largest emitters of greenhouse gases must fulfill their commitments and assist other nations to adapt and mitigate climate risks. In this context, Sri Lanka reiterates its pledge to meet the targets of the Paris Agreement. We have also updated our nationally determined contributions submitted to the UNFCCC, aiming to reduce emissions and achieve carbon neutrality by 2005. Madam Chair, distinguished delegates, as an island nation, Sri Lanka always places high importance on the protection of our oceans. We are acutely conscious on the impact of pollution and climate change on oceans, as well as the ample resources the oceans can provide for the sustenance on the land. Sri Lanka is committed to sustainable use of the oceans and its resources and to achieve the SDG 14. In this context, I am pleased to recall the proclamation of March 1st as World Seagrass Day by the General Assembly this year, which is an initiative led by Sri Lanka. We are also thankful for our co-sponsors and the Assembly for adopting the resolution by consensus, recognize the importance of seagrass as a carbon sink which contributes to the sustainability of the marine environment. Madam Chair, we need also to explore actionable outcomes for ending hunger. Given the economic circumstances, the food nutrition security are at great risk, and my country is taking at its best efforts to heed these impacts. Being historically an agricultural nation, we support sustainable transformation of agriculture to a modernized sector, encourage the enhanced food production for self-sufficiency. Despite all these challenges, we are committed to provide quality education and free health care for all, which we recognize as the core of Sri Lanka's social protection policy. We are also committed to increase access to digital technologies, especially for our children in the post-pandemic of access to education. In conclusion, Sri Lanka commits to endeavor the progress achieved relating to the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. To build a sustainable future for all, we need to set aside our differences and commit ourselves to finding solutions to overcome this crisis. There is no room for narrow nationalism, and I believe this committee, spearheaded by your leadership, will respond to this call in ample measure.
I thank the Permanent Representative of Sri Lanka for his statement, and I now